Hello everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Leadnap Gaming. Today we're going to review the new Origin 890 jump and take a closer look at some of its more glaring issues. This isn't to suggest that this ship isn't a work of art, because everyone in the verse wants to grab a drink on one, but rather, before you go spending big money on one, let's talk about some of the more glaring flaws. Let's first discuss what the 890 is and is not. For the most part, I will be comparing this to the 600i, but out the gate the reality is these are two dramatically different ships rather than simply a sizing up. The 600i is the sort of ship a wealthy industrial tycoon would own to travel around different systems, soaking up all the beauty of the verse while in absolute luxury, and doing so with their closest friends or some other magnate to discuss that big merger. The 600i provides ample entertainment spaces to kill that downtime while in quantum travel, and the touring model plenty of rooms for your friends to stay in for the adventure. The 890, on the other hand, is not that ship. The 890 as we see it today is a party barge, the sort of thing you rent out for the annual org party that floats outside the atmosphere of New Babbage, while 50 of your peers wine and dine for the evening. That might not seem different until you understand that if you own an 890 jump, you're probably not the one partying on it. You're the one serving the drinks. But Led, that captain's cabin. Well, no better place to start then. There's zero reason to have such an opulent captain's cabin on this ship. That cabin should rightfully belong to whoever's shelling out the few million UEC for the party. I hate to say it, but make room in the crew quarters area because one of those belongs to El Capitan. Origin seems to have mixed up the point here. The 890 isn't the private party yacht, it's a commercial enterprise. An 890 captain is focused on two things: that the barge stays in orbit keeping the sun out of the eyes of those ordering drinks, and ensuring that those drinks are cold and properly mixed. That doesn't require an anteroom, a private meeting room, and a captain's galley. Now, yes, large cruise ships do have a captain's mess, but the 890 is not a cruise ship. It only has 4 guest suites, and seating for 50 guests for dinner. I'm going to come back to this in a bit, but for now let's just accept that the 890 is advertised in the release video and by design is a party barge, not a cruise ship. If you're filthy rich and taking the family for a vacation, you're in the 600, which has the amenities one would expect to keep the family happy for the duration. That's why the 890 doesn't have a media room, but has multiple seating areas for different groups of guests to mingle and make small talk. Which of course then this sort of mixed messaging translates into a few more areas of the ship. For example, the guest suites all lack windows. This implies that these are the sorts of room you retreat to after the party, not that you book for a 7-day cruise through the Stanton system. The most expensive suites on today's cruise ships offer private balconies and the best views a room can get. The 890 gives you the cheapest rooms on today's cruise vessels, inboard with no windows. Here again, these rooms are suitable for 2, not a family. There's 4 of them, which means you only need seating for 8 at the dinner table. Not even half the capacity of the mess. Which also means the galley and the crew quarters, or even the captain's mess, are adequate. Instead, you have a professional kitchen the size of a starting ship because those hors d'oeuvres are not going to make themselves. This can also be translated in the pool area. If guests needed a place to rinse off after a soak, their suites offer far more luxurious showers. But if you plan to have swimmers who don't have rooms, then these showers are helpful. The pool area of the ship would almost be perfect, and I don't have major issues here except to say that the lack of a bar isn't keeping with the finer tradition of pool parties. And 2 saunas is a waste when you don't have a steam room. On the whole, I would say the pool area is what the 600i lacks for an elite family vacation. The elevators in the pool area are a bit odd to me here, especially given the ease at which guests can seamlessly change decks in this area. Not to make this video all bad, but that's perhaps one of the strongest features of this ship, that guests don't really notice the transitions between the decks and different spaces on the ship. Bravo! The only people who are implied to stay on the ship more than 24 hours is the crew, evidenced by the fact that they alone get a game lounge, TV watching area, and even a space to do some physical exercise. I absolutely think again that Origin hits it out of the ballpark on the crew deck. This is what other luxury ships dropped the ball on. The crew can go about their lives out of the view of guests. Each has a segregated space to live, work, and party. In the finest aristocratic traditions, the access to this space is hidden and out of view. I'm not a fan of the elevator for the turret at the front, as this could have been left a ladder, but it also could have been designed to descend, acting like a crew boarding elevator. I am going to talk about the combat stuff in a moment, but I wanted to hit on the final architectural failure when it comes from the ship's greatest strength. The placement of the battle bridge is perfect. It sits square in the heart of crew country. It's well protected, and it doesn't touch anything that could have been used for guests. So then what's the problem? Well, remember the guest suites that lack windows? Remember the captain's cabin that does have windows? The glass atrium with the grand staircase is magnificent. The bar, dining mess, and lounge spaces all enjoy commanding views of the verse around us. And some of the best possible views, the $1 million penthouse, belongs to the crew. There's no reason to have the bridge where it is. That space was a grand opportunity for entertaining or quartering of guests. Now, yes, the captain's quarters are close to the bridge, which is good, but if the ship was completely conned from the battle bridge, which it can be, the crew would always be out of sight and mind. It hurts to say it, but there's just no reason the crew of this party barge needs panoramic views. The 890 isn't fast, it doesn't maneuver quickly, and the one time visibility is required, during landing, the current panoramic bridge is blind. Now, I'm initially suggesting that the battle bridge could stay perfectly as is, but a slight redesign and it could step down from the bottom of the ship, gain back 360-degree views, and would hugely be beneficial during landing. Doing so would also free up the grand crown of the ship, where the current bridge is. This suggestion also frees up one of my favorite glaring issues. A party barge doesn't need a battle bridge. None of the combat ships has one, and the largest combat ships all have big glass bridges. Never mind the fact that if you were so worried about the crew being safe from enemy fire, where possibly would the guests go? If pirates are attacking an 890 jump, I promise you they don't care about the crew. There's nowhere for the guests to shelter, and that should be a problem. Of course, most people don't envision a night of luxury partying in the bad part of town, and if they do, they're probably the sorts to be the ones pirating in the first place. Tactically, the ship's a flop for me. It has twice the number of weapon racks needed, and 2 turrets to fend off attackers long enough to try to get away. All positives, but this ship will do little to slow down raiders. The designers did think about this as a possibility, but they spent little time actually thinking about how the battle would play out. There's only one ladder access between decks, which is fine since all the other decks are connected via the grand staircase. But boarders are going to breach on the main deck, cutting the staircase in two, and half the crew is going to be stranded in the useless bridge, unable to reach the weapons racks on the crew deck. Those coming from the crew deck are funneled into excellent fields of fire trying to prevent boarding. Assuming the elevators work, this isn't a problem, but it's best to assume no power during a fight. There's also a lack of an engineering station for the chief engineer. Not a problem though if you generally float above planets for parties. To circle back then, the 890 Jump is a work of art. It's an amazing ship and I look forward to booking them out for parties someday. It seems unlikely, but there is potential that a few modifications made down the road could make this ship truly perfect. There are places where the ship features are well intentioned and has great thought out touches, but these don't really reflect the ship's real intended purpose. Take the waiting room, for example. It isn't that this is a bad idea, but most guests are likely going to board from the twin docking collars, which is good because that offers the best utilization of the grand staircase architecture. Repurposing this space instead to a new captain's suite would allow 2 to 3 more rooms for guests to be created, all with windows, or perhaps more separation with the bar and the guest mess. The 600i bridge is logical. Odds are the owner might also be piloting, but the 890 bridge should be removed, and the space repurposed into either a penthouse VIP suite or the best place to put the bar. CIG could even make this modular, letting 890 owners choose, and pay even more money, which crown module to use. More guest rooms opens up the possibility that the 890 Jump becomes a jump ship again, one that you would actually book for a cruise, not just a night. All in all, I give the 890 Jump a 90%. It's so good. It feels like it should, and so many of the details are thought out. Yet, it fails to meet the mark for what it was originally designed to be, a cruise ship for the wealthy. The biggest clients for the ship, large orgs, will probably own one themselves, so the party market for the 890 seems limited at best, non-existent at worst. CIG finally nailed the crew-guest separation, and it really is an incredible ship. The first capital ship has not failed to impress, but it isn't perfect, and it's just unfortunately not worth the money to buy or operate. What do you think? Did I miss something? Disagree about the bridge? Let's talk about it in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like us on Facebook, like this video down below, subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you all next time.